here's another. I want to flip subjects for you. All right. Wouldn't it make more sense to teach the subject matter to children at a younger age where they have not developed as many bad habits as we have as adults?
So how do we get them away from their parents?
Send them to school?
We get what you're saying, and we understand why you would say it. In other words, it would be easier because the earlier you are in your life, the less resistant you are, and yet you're still exploring and asking. But that premise, good as it is, and it is good, leaves out a really important factor of something that we are at one with and you are not yet at one with, and we'll explain that all fully. Stay just one moment. So we know that the contrast that we started here today, that you all would happily give up, is the stuff that expansion and therefore joy are made of. Mm-hmm. So a child who is maybe disallowed by his parents to follow his own bliss and to know who he really is in the very early stages of his life putting the majority of what is in his vortex. In other words, by the time you're 10 years old, you've put the majority in your vortex that will carry you through this lifetime and beyond. And so while it is tempting that if you could do it, you would relieve that child of the contrast that provided that step one experience, as we've said so many times here today, solutions develop as problems are developing. And so the children develop their asking through their own life experience. It would be, Esther is tempted because she looks at her little grandchildren and she sometimes would so like to feather their nest so completely that they would never have a negative feeling ever.
And why doesn't Esther do that?
Because Esther does not want to or have the right to deprive her grandchildren of their own spectacular growth that will be born out of their own contrast.
How is that depriving them from their own potentially? By not educating them to this level, aren't you depriving them of the potential that they were born with the capability of achieving?
You have to start with the premise that when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. In other words, without life experience, how do you know? How do you know? You see, as we reach around this room for people that we could talk with, you lit up in a strong way because you're asking in a more powerful way than almost anybody that we ever meet. You have strong, powerful questions, but your resistance is such that you can't hear anything that we're saying. But your asking is powerful. So we know.
Okay, so hold on. So let me make sure I understood what you told me. So what I believe you told me is because they're young and they don't know what they want out of life yet, how could they possibly... Is that not what you said?
We say because they have explored very little contrast, they've come to very few personal conclusions. And so when they relax and move into their vortex, they'll be more animal-like.
Let me think about that for a second. All right.
In other words, that's
because of their lack of maturity, their lack of awareness,
because they haven't sifted and concluded. They haven't done as much step one as they will eventually do and as they want to do. Not one of you said, I'll go forth, just feather my nest, and I'll never ask for anything. I'll just go bliss out over what's there. Every one of you said, I would like to go forth and choose for myself because I am a creator.
How about...
Don't you really like it when you get to ask your own question? In other words, you're much more satisfied sitting here in this chair, pummeling us with your inaccuracies than you were sitting over there.
Let me ask you this. I could do this all day long. I'm good.
Yes, there's an awareness in the room of
I'm hung up on this educational level. Like, you're talking to all of us. Like I said, we all have our bad habits developed, and there is a point in time.
How would you identify that you have a bad habit going on? Your words, bad habit.
Bad habit.
How do you come to that conclusion that it's a bad habit?
Because it doesn't achieve the intended goal.
Oh, good. So the manifestation doesn't give you the results that you want. There's another way you can tell. You don't feel good. In other words, you're getting two indicators. One is the manifestation, which is the indicator of what you're doing vibrationally. The other is the way you feel as it's unfolding, which is the relationship also.
So couldn't that be taught to kids at a young age? Hey, listen, you're going to experience this anxiety. You want the nice this or the nice that, but you can't have it. And because that anxiety exists, if you open yourself up to releasing the resistance and shifting the way you think about things, that can be yours. Like,
we think it's a good idea. We would like you to tell the children this.
Well, I seriously.
We're serious too. In other words, Esther says that to her grandchildren at every opportunity. When one of them is feeling uncomfortable, Esther doesn't rush in and try to explain to them how to feel better. But when they're feeling good, she always tries to amplify that. In other words, if you really want to help the children, then you want to replicate their own inner being. And the way the inner being of the children is that when the children are outside the vortex, their inner being stays in the vortex, summoning the children to them. And if the children are to feel good again, they have to find the thought that their inner being feels, because their inner being will never march outside of the vortex in order to rendezvous with the child. But parents do it all the time. When a child is most disconnected from who he really is, that's when the parent rushes in, you see. We would treat our children as their inner being treats them, and that way we would not, as humans, coax them away from understanding their own guidance system. We would teach them at an early age. We would say, you are a powerful being, and you've come here with great reason, and life is supposed to be fun for you. And you're going to have a lot of experiences which are going to cause you to get clearer and clearer about who you are. And you're going to get clearer and clearer about who you are, sometimes without even knowing that it's happening. But what you will always know is, when you feel negative emotion, that means you're not letting yourself be as much as you have become. We would say that to children, and they would get it. They've been saying that to their parents. The parents say, you're in trouble, and the child says, no, I'm not. And the parent says, you're naughty, you're bad, and you must be punished. And the child said, no, I'm not, and I shouldn't be. In other words, children innately know this, but they are integrating into a world, and in the process are being coaxed away from their own guidance system. And we agree with you. We think it would be lovely if a child could be in physical form and sift through contrast and understand their own guidance.
And that's very possible, because anything is possible.
That's
correct?
right. That's right.
So then the question would be, what steps can we take to make that happen?
Get into the vortex and speak to as many children as you can from inside your vortex. And don't be like other adults who walk out of the vortex to engage them.
A better question might be, what can be done to revamp the world's educational system so that every kid on the planet, this becomes part of their educational system from the elementary school.
But you see, here's the thing. Here's the difference between your perspective and ours, and we'll close with this with you, is that we do not see this world or the educational system as broken. We see it as contrast, which is producing improvement that is being experienced generation by generation.
Would this be a leap in improvement if this type of material was somehow incorporated into the world's educational system?
Well, anytime someone understands the basis of something, it is better. It's in all education, starting at the beginning and garnering a basis of understanding is helpful before you move to the next and the next. And we've done some of that here just in this brief conversation. Most of what you said, we agree completely with. Some of what you said had a flawed premise. So because of your patience and willingness to converse with us, and because of our understanding of who you are in relationship to who you want to be, we've been able to move this into further understanding, and the world is better for having had this conversation. That's always the case, you see. It's always true. Everyone, from no matter what the position is they stand in, contributes in a valuable way to the whole. But all of that, in other words, here's the best way of saying it. It doesn't matter how much discord is going on. Expansion is coming out of it. And it doesn't matter how many get into the vortex and how many don't, because when they croak, they are all will. So the whole process is moving along swimmingly and would never need a word from anyone like us. But we've been summoned by those like you who say, hey, wait a minute. Don't ask us to sacrifice our joy for expansion. There's something screwy. You're childlike in that understanding. You can feel that something is really, really off about that. That's why you want to go back and make it better for the little ones, because you can almost remember the day in which your joyous connection was ripped from you at a very early age, and you felt resentment about it ever since, you see.
Not even close, but that's okay. That is quite all right. That's a good try, though.
Say again?
That's not even close, but that's okay. It's really about developing a higher level of awareness.
Do you believe that as we are visiting with you right now, that you are tuned in, tapped in to who you are?
I believe so, yes. I know so.
And what we perceive as we visit with you is someone with as much wanting as we have ever encountered, who is so wadded up in resistance that you can't even begin to feel the fullness of who you are.
How would you know that? I do. I feel like I'm extremely in tune with myself. That's how I'm sitting here right now. I feel it's more a matter of you're doing the right thing by educating the world about your higher levels of awareness, and I'm just trying to figure out a way where you can take this and apply it to kids at a young age, so we don't have to undevelop our habits and recreate them. It's a possibility. Because your disconnect from who you are happened at such an early age, and because you have practiced it on such a consistent basis since, here you stand, and not only do you not remember when it began, but you don't even think that it happened, even though vibrationally speaking you are so far from the love that is really who you are, from the understanding of who you are. We have never evoked such defensiveness from anyone ever. Excellent. I'm the first. I'll take it.
And so when you defend your position, when you defend the source within you who sees you as perfect as you are, that means that there's something wadded up in your vibration, you see, that only you can change. In other words, we could speak the rest of this day and tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, but words don't teach, because we are, it's like we are speaking two different languages. We are on one wavelength and you are another. Does it make you wrong? No, it makes you a valuable contributor to the step one part of the equation.
Okay, thank you.
You're way too much trouble. Do you feel, as we do, immense appreciation for our friend? Do you acknowledge, as we do, the depth of his desire to understand? Can you feel the constriction within him as he wants to know and wants to think that he does, but isn't feeling it, so he's expressing it in words that he does not yet feel? And do you not recognize the same thing in yourself every damn day of the world in one way or another? Esther will say, now I've got it. Now I've got it. The last piece has just clicked into place, and now I've got it. And then she'll say, or not. Or not. Maybe there's more.